Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of Restoring the Roar. I am your host, Alex Loosemore. Before I get into show-related topics, I'd like to remind you that this show is proudly sponsored by Zagnif Apparel. You can use the code word FOOBS15 at checkout and get 15% off on select items. You can go to www.etsy.com/shop/Zagnif Apparel Design. Thank you again to Zagnif Apparel for partnering with North Sports Dynasty. And let's get into the show. So, obviously, back to free agency updates. There was a massive one Sunday night. We'll get into that and how it affects this team. Since most of the shakeup of the roster is pretty much done, I want to take a look at how the week 1 lineup currently looks before the draft and kind of look at how that affects the draft strategy, where the Lions should be looking. Are they kind of best player available? Are they looking at specific needs now? Like where do I think they'll be looking? And we'll discuss that a little bit later in the show. As always, though, if you like what we're doing here, like, share, comment, subscribe if you're on YouTube. Follow North Sports Dynasty wherever you see this show. And yeah, let's have some fun and talk some Lions here. All right, so free agency updates. Not just signings this week. There were also some restructures. Dan Campbell, there's my main man, Alex. I'm not going to give you a roar, but thank you for tuning in. All right. We'll start off with Charles Harris, the defensive end, restructuring his deal, freeing up $2.8 million. I gave it a B. He's kind of in the middle of the packet for edge rushers now. Like, he was solid a couple years ago. Then obviously we got Hutchinson, Josh Pascal, James Houston, and now he's kind of in the middle of all that. So freeing up $2.8 million to keep him on the roster, I like that. It's just I don't know where he really fits in the rotation. Scott, you're first on YouTube now, first overall, but thank you for tuning in. Yeah, I like what Charles Harris brought in that 2021 season. He got hurt in 2022, but wasn't great before that. So we'll see if he can bounce back to his 2021 form or if that was just an anomaly in his career. A former Lion coming back, guard Graham Glasgow, a 1-year deal worth up to $4.5 million. I gave it a B+. This is a guy that even if we keep Vaitai, he can push him for that starting job. I know the contract would dictate that Vaitai would start, but Glasgow's been a starting guard essentially ever since he came into the NFL, played a bit of center too. So if Ragnow went down, there's our replacement center. I love Graham Glasgow, though. I've always loved him, and I have a bias. He played at Michigan, so there's that. But solid guard. He'll compete for that right guard, and that gives us very good depth if he doesn't win that starting job at either left or right guard. Only reason he didn't get an A-, 4.5 is a little rich for a backup. Obviously, that's incentive-based to get that far. But a solid signing overall. Scott said the Rams are getting rid of all their players. Soon they'll be trading off their fans. Yeah, maybe they can keep their first-round pick this year. We'll see how that goes. I don't know that they'll be as bad as everyone's expecting. They're still going to have to keep a decent amount of talent just because their contracts won't allow them to be moved. But if those guys get hurt, then it's a lot like this past year. So we'll see how they play there. Kept their kicker, Michael Badgley. I don't know the contract details. I took a quick peek before the show here, and I wasn't able to find anything. I gave it a B. He was a solid kicker. There's better kickers out there, but it was easier to get worse than it was to get better. So I'm okay with it. Their fans live in LA, so they already left for another team that wins. No loyalty there. Ouch. Whoever that is, thank you for tuning in and just laying the blows on LA. Ben from Las Vegas wants to know why you love Graham Glasgow again. He's a solid player. Obviously he played at Michigan, so I've got a little bit of bias there. But he was in Detroit and played extremely solid, and then just left because the Broncos offered him more money than the Lions did. I was sad to see him go. I'm glad he's back and hope he can push Vaitai for that starting spot. I was shocked that Detroit didn't make a run at Sean Murphy-Bunting. Misador, thank you for tuning in. And I kind of was too until the signing on Sunday night, and it kind of made a lot of sense. We'll get to that one in a couple more here. First, though, defensive back CJ Moore. Typically, he's a safety, but he did play corner in spots for us last year. 2-year deal worth up to $4.5 million, $3 million fully guaranteed. I gave it a C+ because he's not going to see the field barring injuries for anything other than special teams. And $3 million for special teams player. I'm not too sure how I like that. Keep beating around that bush. I'm not sure who this is, so I don't know how to comment on that. I'm going to take a look here quick. Hope the Rams get OBJ back. I don't think Detroit's going for him, so I think you're safe there. I think it's other places you got to worry about there. Sorry, just checking quick to see who this is. Oh, Drew. Oh, thank you for tuning in. Yeah, so I'm assuming that the no loyalty is to the LA comment. The beating around the bush. Don't know why. So if you're viewing on the North Sports Dynasty group, there is a link in the bottom of the description that allows your name to be shown. It gives StreamYard permission to show your name. Ben says, correction, he's known as shut down Murphy-Bunting, and it's not because of his play necessarily. I mean, it could be just not in a good way. But I'm kind of surprised he didn't get targeted more in free agency because he's a pretty good young corner. I always liked Murphy-Bunting, so I would have been happy if the Lions got him. But the reason I'm glad we didn't, CJ or Chauncey Gardner-Johnson signed a 1-year, $8 million deal. I gave it an A+. This was the best defensive free agent left. Most people had him as one of the best defensive free agents overall, a top 10 free agent on most people's list entering free agency. And he had that familiarity, obviously, with Campbell and Aaron Glenn. So I have no problem with him coming in and fitting into this defense. I put DB because he can play that nickel corner. He can play both safety spots. I think he'll fit in I got him at strong safety on my board here. I'll show the board in a second, just using this background to hide it a little bit until I actually talk that. Andrew, on behalf of all Giants fans, thank you for taking him. Yeah, you're welcome. It took me a second there. Forgot that he was an Eagle there for a second. But yeah, I absolutely love the Gardner-Johnson signing. This was a home run pick. This shows that the Lions are committed to try and go for it this year. Obviously, with the division so up for grabs, I'm glad to see them taking these steps to go for it. Ben says injury prone. Could be the main reason that Murphy-Bunting wasn't as attractive to most teams as other free agent corners. Yeah, I could see that. To me, it was surprising, though, the fact that he's, 25, 26, still very young. And, but, yeah, I thought he'd be targeted a little more than he was. Yeah, I agree, Andrew. He should be the center fielder. To me, I think if you're playing cover 2 or cover 1, he's deep, way in the back there. But if you're playing cover 0 or that press man, he can be used in that slot to cover those slot receivers. But I agree fully. He should be. I would love to see him and Kirby Joseph just 2 high safety pretty much the entire time. I would be so happy to see that. Yeah, Ben said agreed. Gardner-Johnson was the best free agent signing for the Lions. Yeah, without a doubt. Far and away the best signing. one of the best signings, I'd say, in free agency overall, just to get him for $8 million. I know it's a 1-year deal, but yeah, I absolutely love the signing. I think this puts us quite a bit ahead of everyone else in the division for now. I'm not going to go and say we've won the division, all that, because there's still a full 17-game season to be played. There's still a draft. Yeah, still so much can happen, injuries, all that. But we are definitely the front runner as of now. Mr. Fingers, thank you for tuning in. Says, yo, yo, yo. How you doing tonight, Anthony? And the last move the Lions made, kind of to match the money that Gardner Johnson got. Defensive end Romeo Okwara restructured his deal, freeing up almost $9 million. I gave this an A+. Romeo is one of my favorite players. Solid power pass rusher. Could slide in and play that 3-tech on pass rushing downs to keep Houston and Hutchinson on the outsides, or gives them a solid rotation of pass rushers, as I'll show in a second here. And yeah, for me, I love what Okwara brings to the table, both in the run and the pass, and I think it's a solid guy to keep around. Andrew, I don't know if you know this, he was actually a former Giant. So thank you for letting us have the opportunity with him. Zagner says, say a word, Mr. Fingers is in the building. Yeah. Funny how you two are both in the same place. Coincidence how that happened. Yeah. All right. So that was all the moves. Again, another really solid week, I would say, for the Lions. Hopefully they can continue to build on it. Andrew said, yeah, he hates us. Misused, or should say underused. Yeah, absolutely. Ben says, keep Romeo away from the ladies in Detroit. The name just screams, give us your number. Yeah, that would be interesting. Ain't nothing watching the homie Encyclopedia Brown talk Detroit Lions. Building is good. Sean, what's up, man? Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, all right, so that was our free agent moves. Now I'm going to pull down the virtual background. I've got the week 1 lineup before the draft, like as it's currently constructed. So as you might be able to see, some of the players have colors beside them. You probably can't see it because I wrote really small to try and fit everything on the board. But there's players with a blue star beside them. That's a roster lock. They're on the roster week 1, probably starting for most of them. And green is they should be safe as of now. Obviously, if the Lions draft somebody at their position, then obviously they're kind of fighting for their spot. And red is fighting for their lives or their roster spots. For one reason or another, they could be on the chopping block come the end of training camp. Currently, the only quarterback on the roster is Jared Goff. So, obviously, he's safe. And he was a top 10 quarterback statistically last year in almost every category. So, he's obviously a lock. Running back, Montgomery and Swift. Swift, as of now, is a lock. I still think he could be traded. We'll see. But I do think for now he's safe. Craig Reynolds and Jamar Jefferson, they should be safe. If the Lions do draft a running back or sign another running back, then Jefferson is more so fighting for his spot than Reynolds. But that's a very, very solid running back room. The wide receivers, obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown, Josh Reynolds, and Jameson Williams are all roster locks. They're barring something going terribly wrong, they're on the roster. Should be safe. I've got Khalif Raymond. He's our kick returner, punt returner, so I would basically put him as a roster lock. Kind of fighting for their lives here. I've got Quintez Cephas, Tom Kennedy. Even though he balls out every training camp, he never makes the roster. And Trinity Benson. I do think we're drafting a wide receiver, maybe 2. I don't know how early, but at some point, I believe we're filling out the wide receiver depth. DJ Chark is also still in play, according to what I've seen. So that would push Reynolds to a backup role. Chark on one side, Jameson Williams on the other. That's 2 burners. I would love to see that. But yeah, wide receiver, Benson, Cephas, and Kennedy are kind of fighting currently for the last 2 spots. And I just saw the comments here. Andrew said, I need a bigger phone. Ben said, Zach and Miri making a porno behind that whiteboard. No. Is there an iPhone Max? I don't know. Ben said, Alex, you should wear a hard hat next time you have this background for your show. Scott said, Alex needs to write bigger. I'm sorry, but to fit 24 different positions on this board, I kind of needed to write small and multiple players at each position. You got a whole 23andMe chart. Yeah, I wrote down essentially every player that's currently on the Lions roster. There's a few that I missed, I know that, but Andrew replied to Ben and said nope, because then he gets put into Zach and Miri's video. And then Ben says, yikes. Yeah, agreed, yikes. All right. Back to the whiteboard here. The tight ends, Brock Wright, Shane Zylstra, and James Mitchell. I've got Mitchell as a lock, being that he was a 5th-round pick. Coming off an ACL tear, he saw action later in the season and caught every ball that was thrown to him. And yeah, I think he's safe. Currently, Brock Wright and Shane Zylstra should also be safe. But I do think they're going to pick up a tight end at some point. So one of those guys could be on the chopping block. The offensive line. I've got Decker, Jonah Jackson, Frank Ragnow, Penei Sewell, all as absolute locks. Vaitai, I've got half green and half red. If he takes a pay cut, then he should be safe. If he doesn't, then he's kind of on the chopping block here, especially with Graham Glasgow behind him. Matt Nelson signed a 1 or 2 year deal last week, so I put him under should be safe. He was a good swing tackle for them last year. Logan Stenberg and Obina Etse are both kind of on the chopping block. If they get another guard, then Stenberg's kind of fighting for a spot. Easy, as they called him in Hard Knocks, he was brutal at left tackle. If he's improved, then he's kind of still fighting for that spot. But if he didn't, then I think he's good as gone. Now over to the defensive line. And this is why I said Charles Harris was a B+, because I've got 7 defensive ends listed. I've got James Houston, Romeo Okwara, Aiden Hutchinson, and Josh Pascal, all as roster locks. John Kaminsky with his 2-year deal, and Charles Harris with that restructuring of his deal should be safe. I got Julian Okwara kind of fighting for his roster spot here. Kind of just getting lost in the fold here. Not progressing as quickly as they'd probably like him to, going into his 4th year, I believe, on a contract year. And I could see them adding another young edge rusher, probably in the middle, late part of the draft. Or if they go best player available earlier in the draft. And so Julian Okwara could be on his way out, which would suck because we've got the Okwara brothers. I'd like to keep them together personally. Defensive tackle, I've got Aleem McNeil is the only roster lock. Isaiah Buggs signed that 2-year deal last week, so he should be safe. And then fighting for their spots, I've got Benito Jones and Levi Onwuzurike. Onwuzurike just hasn't been able to stay healthy, really, and didn't really perform that well his rookie season when he was healthy. And Brad Holmes, talking about him at the Combine, didn't seem too optimistic. So I think he's kind of on his way out. Especially, I think they're going to draft 1, maybe even 2 defensive tackles. So we'll see how that goes there. Linebacker, they need some more bodies in this room. I've got Alex Anzalone and Malcolm Rodriguez as roster locks. Derek Barnes should be safe starting at the other outside linebacker. And fighting for the roster spot, I've got Anthony Pittman, just based on the fact that they need more bodies there. He could easily be on his way out. Got a couple more comments here. Zagnif Productions, for really though, Zag, Said he's not getting caught short if he winds up on Maury. Jeez. Mr. Fingus said, I would not want to spend a day inside your head. I'd spend the entire day tripping over sports trivia. I got another interesting one for Thursday. It's a little bit different, but same idea. So we'll see if it's any easier for you. Scott says, I'm getting a tooth extracted tomorrow, so I might not be able to comment on these shows. I hope it goes well and hope you'll be feeling better after. Andrew, what's up, man? Hope you're feeling better. And yeah, I'll see you tomorrow at work. And Scott says, not if he sees you first. I guess we'll see who sees who first. All right. Yeah, so linebackers need more bodies. The cornerback room. So I've got Emmanuel Mosley and Jeff Okudah starting as your outside corners. I've got them as roster locks. Cameron Sutton is starting as my nickel slot corner. So he is another roster lock, obviously, with that contract. Should be safe. I have Jerry Jacobs and Will Harris, who both just signed those extensions in the last couple weeks here. The fighting for their life spot, I have Jaron Williams. He's been a camp body, practice squad guy, and I do truly think they're going to draft a corner early. I don't know about 6, but 18, 48, 55, one of those is a corner. I would almost put money on it. So Jaron Williams is on the outside looking in. And then safety here. I've got 3 of the 5 as roster locks. That would be Tracy Walker, Kirby Joseph, and CJ Gardner-Johnson. Those ones are quite obvious. Walker restructured his deal. Kirby Joseph already is tied for the most interceptions on Aaron Rodgers by a player in their career, with only 3. And Gardner-Johnson just signed that 1-year deal, and he's one of the best safeties in football. Ifeatu Melifonwu is fighting for his life here. Just in this whole defensive backfield, he's kind of on the outside looking in. Like I said a couple weeks ago in one of my articles, when he came in his rookie year and Okudah got hurt, he locked down Devontae Adams for the better part of 3 quarters before getting hurt, and then just never was the same. So we'll see if he can kind of get back to that. If not, he's probably on the chopping block because I think they're going to draft a couple DBs. And then CJ Moore should be safe. $3 million of his $4.5 million is guaranteed. He's one of the best special teams players we have. I think he's essentially a lock to make the roster, but it's not fully guaranteed. And then obviously the special teams. I can't remember who the long snapper we just signed is. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But him and the one we had are kind of fighting for their lives there. Just the one that wins the job will get it. But the one we just signed was a Pro Bowler last year. And then we have Jack Fox, who's one of the better young punters in football. And Michael Badgley, who I talked about earlier, is good, not great. But it's easier to get worse than it is to get better. All right, just going to take a second and put the background back up. All right. Fingus says, yo, Zag, how come we haven't gotten together and done karaoke? I haven't seen you video. You kind of got, or I've seen you video. Kind of got a few skills. Zagnus says, say less potato. Probably hitting the scene this weekend. Any of y'all that are in OKC this weekend are welcome to join. Hopefully there are other people in the OKC area that will join you. That would be awesome. Andrew says you will draft a corner in the first round. I do believe so. But Brad Holmes has also done very well drafting defensive backs later in the draft. I mean, Kirby Joseph was a 3rd-round pick, so it wouldn't surprise me kind of in the middle of the draft there to kind of double up on DBs. We'll see what happens there. Plus another pass rusher. Yeah, I just don't know if it's going to be an edge rusher or from the interior. Probably both, honestly. I think it'll be both of them. The monster in the meditation hole intercepted all of Rodgers' thoughts. Does that count? For that one, no, but I do like that comment. Speaking of all the draft talk there, how does that current lineup affect the draft strategy? So for me, I've seen a bunch of stuff saying the Lions have taken Jalen Carter off their board. I don't believe that. If you look at the stuff with the character issues that they're calling it, obviously there are some issues going on there. But a lot of the players that Brad Holmes has drafted recently have had different issues in college. You can go look it up. Amon-Ra St. Brown. I saw a post earlier that had it all listed, but Amon-Ra had some. James Houston had some. Aleem McNeil had some. Like, there's a lot. There was like 5 or 6 players that have been drafted in the last 3 years that all had different sort of issues. Now, none of them led to the death of a college teammate, and none of them involved drunk driving that I'm aware of. But my point is a lot, and I've kind of got a thought on this. I think he's trying to tank his draft stock. I do. And I've got a reason for it. The fact that the Eagles are sitting there at 10, and you've got some other really good teams kind of in that 5 to 13, 14 range. I think he might be looking and saying, I'm probably not going 1 through 4. And this is why I was saying this. I do believe Arizona's trading out of the 3rd pick, and I think 4 quarterbacks are going 1 through 4. So the earliest I think he's going to go is 5. The money isn't really that different from 5 to 10. And I do believe if he's sitting there at 10, Philly will take him and just deal with it. But I could see him saying, screw that early money, try and risk it for that 2nd contract, go to a team like the Eagles, have a shot at a Super Bowl early, play with a buddy of his in Jordan Davis. Obviously, Nakobe Dean's there. Cardinals, Colts. I'm looking at Atlanta as well. I think Atlanta could be in play to move up for Will Levis. I like that pairing a lot, personally. But yeah, Raiders wouldn't shock me. The Colts could get up to get whichever guy they prefer out of Levis or Richardson, because I do believe it's Stroud then Young, 1 and 2. But I think it's quarterbacks 1 through 4, personally. I really do. And then, yeah, like I said, the money's not that different between 5 and 10. So I could see him realistically trying to push his way to Philly. We've seen guys do it before. Or it could just be that he's been lazy as hell right now. And it's a scary proposition there, because you don't know if he's just being lazy or like what the mindset is there. Obviously, he had all that legal stuff going on, lost the teammate. It all can be mentally traumatic. So there's also that aspect that has to go into it. But it's going to be interesting to see where he goes there. If Carter's not the pick at 6, I don't know. And I don't know if I'd go that far to say Albert Haynesworth. But I get where you're going there with that. I really do. Sean says Atlanta has a quarterback, Taylor Heineke. I really like Heineke. But for me, I mean, we saw in Washington, he doesn't really get the chance to be a starter for long periods of time. So, and Atlanta's coach is on his last shot here, Arthur Smith. And typically how you save that is you get a rookie quarterback. So if they go get that 1st-round quarterback, Arthur Smith has been known to be really good with the quarterback, so that could be his ticket to get a couple extra years. Most wait until they get back to stop trying fair. Yeah, I don't know with Carter. I really don't. But if he's not in play for the Lions at 6, I would personally like to trade back. See if there's a team that wants one of these edge rushers. Andrew and Sean are going to go at it. Andrew says Heineke is Chad Pennington with less talent. Ouch. yeah, the Lions could see if anyone wants to come up for one of these edge rushers. There's been talks of Vegas potentially going corner. So somebody wants to get up and get their corner. If the Lions want to take corner and just get their guy, they can. Yeah, 6 is a total wild card for me. And then 18 is kind of based off of what they do at 6. If they do go corner at 6, a Christian Gonzalez, Devon Witherspoon, even Joey Porter Jr., someone like that, then I think 18 is wide open. You can even potentially go offense. You could get an Osiris Torrance, finish off that offensive line, move on from Vaitai. You could go, if you don't get a DJ Chark back, you could go with Quentin Johnston, one of the outside receivers. I'd stay away from Addison, JSN. I think those guys are both slot guys at this level. And deadly slot receivers, I will say that, but I think they are slot guys. But if Quentin Johnston's still there, I can see the Lions taking a shot on him. Obviously, the quarterbacks are going to be gone, so I don't see quarterback being in play. You could go whatever defensive lineman's best available. You could look at linebacker. I mean, I want them to go linebacker at some point here because I'm not a big Alex Anzalone fan. I'd like a guy that they can plug at middle linebacker in a year or two, like a Trenton Simpson, Drew Sanders, someone like that. There's just a lot to play with here. You could go Brian Branch, have him learn under CJ Gardner-Johnson, kind of take over next year, because I think Gardner-Johnson's going to play himself out of a contract in Detroit. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do there. I think the second round tight end's in play. Defensive back is in play. Defensive line's in play. Second, third round, that backup quarterback is still in play. It's gonna be really, really interesting to see what they do there. Let's get back to some of these comments here. I think Taylor will be in rotation. I think all 3 quarterbacks struggle. Agreed, but I think if you go get a Levis or an Anderson at 3 or 4, then I think he's going to be your guy pretty much. Heineke might start a couple weeks and then he takes over, either Levis or Richardson, sorry. But, yeah, I think if you get one of those guys, they're probably going to play him sooner than later. Andrew, all the things mentally are there, not enough physical talent. I can see that. But I mean, he's a leader. He took them toe to toe with Green Bay in the playoffs, and yeah, it's just I like Heineke. I just, like I said, I don't know that he's ever going to get enough of a chance at starting quarterback. Sean says, Heineke's a raw guy. He's the guy you want if it's you and him versus a group of guys. He'll have you believing you can win. He had heart. I loved Pennington. Dan Campbell says, okay, I'm back. I just got out of the shower and was dancing to You Can't Touch This by MC Hammer. I think I pulled a hammy. What did I miss? Not too much. Talked over the Lions roster and kind of where I think you guys are going in the draft. If it's really you, Dan Campbell. And speaking of which, I gotten a picture of these guys because these two have absolutely been killing it this offseason. Dan Campbell and GM Brad Holmes. Absolutely love what they've been doing. Honestly, since they took over the franchise, I love the teardown and quick rebuild that they've done, and hope they finish the job here. Andrew says Taylor won't start. He quickly becomes a fan fave. They don't want him to win. Fair. And then he says he has you believing you can until he throws the ball and you realize you can't. Ouch. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Yeah, all right. That's really all I got for Lions talk here. So I think we'll wrap up the show right away here. But as always, thank you for watching. You can catch me Tuesdays. I started a bit later today. I just didn't really have my stuff together to start the show. But typically you can catch me at 7 p.m. Mountain, 9 p.m. Eastern. And just kind of go half an hour to an hour, however long until I run out of stuff to talk about. Yeah, thank you again for tuning in. If you're looking for more on the North Sports Dynasty page, tomorrow night you've got Terribly Toxic. Every Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Mountain. Thursday, we've got the Off the Boards hockey show. It's not every Thursday, I believe, kind of every now and then. And then Fridays, as always, at 9 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Mountain, we have the actual North Sports Dynasty, the title show. And then you can catch various other shows all over the place. Obviously, we love partnering with the Let's Talk Football family and their wide variety of shows. You can catch me also on Thursday nights on the NFL edition. Saturday mornings with Mr. Sean Spencer for Let's Talk College Football. And yeah, you can catch my weekly articles on NFCNorthReport.com. And this week it was just a quick little article on the CJ Gardner-Johnson signing. Pretty much everything I talked about tonight. Andrew, I will message you right after the show here. And yeah, let's get this wrapped up. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week.